Hello class, I am back with another video. This one is something called strain theory. We're going to run through what this means and then time for some fun. We're going to get into, we're going to get into cults. Well, intellectually and academically, we're not actually going to join a cult. Not a good idea ever. But yeah, so I got a cool mini little project for you. Okay. So strain theory is based on what happens in a society when we have something called anomie. Whoops, it went away. Okay, pronounced, yeah. So this is called anomie. So norms are weak, conflicting, or absent. When would this be most likely to happen? We should know this, or at least have a good guess. When do you think anomie is most likely to appear in a society? All right, if you mentioned when the economic structure shifts, for example, anime certainly existed in the transition from industrial to post-industrial in the United States. That's where we have a lot of riots and violence and things like that. So when societies become disorganized, this is a state of anomie. And what this sociologist named Robert Merton, he comes up with what's called strain theory. And this means that we're going to see more deviance when there is a gap between culturally desirable goals. So, like, what's your goal in life? Oh, I want to be famous. I want to be rich. That's what we're talking about here. And the legitimate way of obtaining them. So if anyone says to you, what's the way to become rich? Well, what's your main answer going to be? Okay, a lot of people say, go to school, go to college, this and that. That's our legitimate way of obtaining it. You know how else you can get rich? You can rob a bank and not get caught. But that's not legitimate. It's not legal. So keep that stuff in mind. So we have our goals, and the way of obtaining something is also called the means. Whenever you hear about means of doing something, it just means the way of doing it. Same thing. And the question here is, are the goals positive or negative goals? Are the means positive or negative means? Conformity, which we've talked about, when you accept the goal of your culture, when you accept the means to achieve it. It's not deviance, but other responses are considered deviant, and in strain theory, they're all about whether you reject the goal, whether you reject the means, whether you reject both of them, or in the case of cults, whether you just want to make your own new society, basically. Okay, so we have goals and means. Conformity means plus in both categories. So here we have what's called the deviance typology of strain theory. And again, accept, think of that as like a plus. Okay, and rejection, think of that like a minus sign. So, in conformity, let's see, what color should I use? Oh, green. In conformity, you accept the goals and the means. So, what the culture says is desirable and how you're supposed to do it. With this thing called innovation, you accept the goals, so you want to be, let's say rich and famous. It's an easy one, although there's more to life than that. Says someone who is neither rich nor famous. But you reject the means, so you don't want to go there. So there's an example I mentioned before. How might you achieve these goals, but with rejecting the means? And that's if you rob a bank. How about some other lifestyles that would be considered in this innovation category? Okay, are you right? We shall see. We're going to get there. Ritualism. You reject the goals. Bad color. You just don't care. What everyone says, whatever, can't be bothered. But you go through the process that everyone says you do. So here you're just kind of like going through the motions. Here you sort of like, whatever, you do what you want. You go through the motions, you do everything everyone says you're supposed to do, but maybe you don't try so hard. Maybe you just don't. You're just kind of mailing it in. You're showing up to work. You don't care. Blah 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 blah. Just getting through your day. Retreatism, you reject the means and you reject the goals. These are people that sort of drop out of society. So we're going to watch a video on probably Monday, I think, about people called the mole people, which are really interesting. Look them up if you want to. They basically live in tunnels underground, like underneath the subways. They've completely dropped out of society. Now the fifth thing, sort of the offshoot, if you reject, so here they are rejecting means and goals, but here we have, if we have new goals and new means to replace these ones up here. So in rebellion, this is going to be replaced, and this is where we have our cults, and that's going to bring us to our miniature little project. Okay. We're going to do this part later because I want to get into cults. Okay? So don't look at the answers. No. Okay. Here's our mini project. I'll put a lot more detail up onto Shobi. But here are 4 famous cults that you can research. And here is what you need to answer. How does it represent rebellion? So what are the new norms? What are their new means and their new goals? I want a history of how it was formed and the results. In other words, what happened? And then how are members sanctioned? One thing we know about cults is that you are not allowed to talk to people that are not in the cult. What happens if you try to do that? We shall find out. So I'm going to put more on Shobi about how to do this, but it's pretty interesting. This one here, just to warn you, is freaky, okay? If you don't like looking at some bald guy with crazy eyes talking into a camera, don't do that one. This one is where we get the expression, don't drink the Kool-Aid. If you research that, you'll know exactly what happened there. This happened in the 90s. I remember watching it on TV. And most of us have definitely heard of Scientology. Spoiler alert, everyone died. Oh, sorry about that. But you can kind of predict that. Scientology, different story, different kind of beast. Okay, that's it. Video's getting long. Let's work on this.